Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Chris Katsakis, and we are going to be talking about Artisticon and
Artisticon.
Artisticon. I'm sorry,
Yes, it's a little bit of a mouthful.
description as well, your social media, the websites, all that good stuff. And so we're going to be talking about art today, getting into the art industry, maybe a little bit of comic books, and what Artisticon is.
Okay, you want me to start?
Yeah,
Okay.
right in there.
Well, Artisticon is a brainchild of my good friend Enrico and I. We were back in the con circuit in 2012. We were accepted in New York Comic Con's Artist Alley. Enrico was a sculptor for McFarlane Toys for several years, worked for Henson and Disney, and he was getting back into illustration. I was, still illustrating. I've had an illustrative career, no pun intended, in publishing and advertising, editorial for the last 20 years. I'm a graduate of the University of Arts. We had met at an ad agency we both worked for, and we, became friends over 10 years ago. And, two creators kind of got together and we were working on an independent comic book title. And after being accepted into Artist Alley of New York City, I mean, if you've never been to New York Comic Con, quite an experience, and it just gets bigger every year. You're in a huge room with all these super mega talented comic book artists, painters, fantasy artists, you name it. Everything runs again, writers, and we're sitting there, and one after the other, we just had a lot of young people coming up to us, and I think it was just happening throughout the hall. Like, how do I get into this? What do I do? And we kind of thought, let's kind of bring this aspect. We've been to other shows. We went to a show out in 2008 called, at the time, AluxCon, which now is branded IX, and their 10th year is coming up. It's a wonderful show centered around imaginative realism. And when we went out there, it was out in Altoona the second year, we saw this is a really cool model. They do lectures and workshops. They gear towards a collector's market for fantasy art. So that's their real business model. They bring in collectors from all around the world. The artists show their original art and they can sell. They've since added a night showcase of like an artist alley, and digital artists are involved in that. But I thought it's really geared towards, imaginative realism and fantasy art. We were hardcore comic guys. So can we bring something similar to that in our Delaware Valley? I said, you got to go to New York, you go out to outskirts of PA, you got to go out to, LA or whatever. San Diego Comic-Con is, a huge thing. Denver Comic-Con, these are the big players. We were looking more for like an educational conference. And being that we were both professional artists, we said, let's see what we can do. The original intent was just have a kind of a group of artists come to an art center and run some workshops and panels and, demos and things, and get some young people out, some emerging artists and maybe some established artists, and have like a nice day or two of camaraderie and networking. And well, it turned into something far bigger than that. We did an interview on Pencil Kings with Mitch Bowler, and from that I got a lot of feedback. And I had known comic book artists calling me. I had John Shindahede, who you've interviewed. He said, "How did I get in on this?" And I'm like, just all of a sudden, it just started steamrolling into something bigger. So by the time we actually had the show, so to speak, the conference, we had 26 guest creators, being writers, well-known comic book artists. We had fantasy artists, fine artists. So that's why when Enrico came up with the term Artisticon, we said, we're not really pigeonholing ourselves into the term Comic-Con, the term fantasy art show. We are a conference, and I don't like to use convention, because that denotes more of a fan base. Not to say you can't come out and meet these people and talk to them one-on-one as a fan, but it's really geared towards the creator. And as Enrico would say, you're kind of getting the backstage pass behind the concert and getting to know what goes into making comic books, goes into making narrative art, what's involved in sequential visual storytelling. And, you know, it was just really 2 wonderful days of all these creators together. And because we had a couple hundred attendees, it was an intimate gathering. And we even had structured portfolio interviews in a separate room. Well, we did away with that because everybody was talking so much in the artist showcase, the artist alley, so to speak. We had group portfolio reviews. So we had students from the Academy of Fine Arts, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, Moore College of Art, Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, Hushin, all grouping together around these professionals reviewing their books. And one of the attendees wrote a beautiful review and posted on her blog. She's a young lady who graduated from Moore a couple years ago. Her name is Michelle Lockamy, and extreme talent. She's going to go far in her career. She won the Golden Award for the L. Ron Hubbard Writer and Illustrators of the Future Award a couple years back. And we knew none of this when she attended. And, you know, she was very unassuming and wrote how she really loved the show because it was kind of unique. It was approachable. And that's where I think what we set out to achieve. When I read a review, I said, okay, we've achieved what I was hoping for: mentorship, networking between professionals, and giving something back to the community that maybe even my 6-year-old son, Enrico's daughter's a baby, can continue on as a legacy down the road, or whoever may take it over. We had a lot of great people involved. Sean Stippick, who was the director of the Lyceum Center for the Arts, became part of the Artisticon team. Miranda Powell and oh my God, I just had one of those brain moments. Bill Haas. They are the ones that run Camden Comic-Con at Rutgers University in Camden. And Bill and I have like mission statements, and we got together. He was so behind Artisticon. They both came on board, and we've become great friends ever since. I've supported them at Camden Comic-Con for their programming. They're growing by leaps and bounds. So, you know, it's one of these art symposias that kind of fills some voids for artists out there, especially young artists that, you know, may go to a show and feel kind of lost in the mix, can't approach a really well-known illustrator, and they may feel awkward. There might be a social anxiety. We kind of drop those barriers. You know, everybody's kind of just chill. You know, it's like, come on in, come into the workshop, learn what you can. We have hands-on visual storytelling class by Bob McLeod. We had Carl Potts, who actually, I have the book right near me. He actually wrote the book for DC on the visual storytelling, the art inside the art of sequential visual storytelling. And I mean, it was 2.5 hours that you sat in there and listened to this lecture that he travels the world and does. We just sponsored him at Baltimore Comic-Con this weekend. We had over almost 100 people in the class. You know, we have something, I think, for everybody, from the emerging artist to the established artist to those that are maybe coming into the field after a career change. We encourage everybody to bring out their portfolios. You know, since that show, we've had creators at the show start doing projects together. So, you know, that Michelle Lockamy I just told you about, she met Pat Shand, who's a writer. He was a writer for Xenoscope, and he's done Marvel novels. He just successfully last year did his Kickstarter Destiny, which we supported, and Destiny Volume 2 just funded, and Michelle did a print for it, and it's the most selling stretch goal. So I mean, that got those two together, you know, that never met before. So the whole idea is bringing people together, a celebration of the creative process, promoting the arts. The arts are being cut back left and right. You know, we have people coming in that can't afford art school, and they look for alternatives. So, you know, we are looking to hook up young artists with, you know, established artists, and then maybe apprentices, mentorships, things of that nature. Camden is a big proponent of education. Miranda works in the outreach program for the Camden School District, putting artists into positions in the art departments out there in the elementary and middle schools. Ryan Brady and Phil McNulty were two of our guests that do a course on how to create comics, and they were out there doing, I think, about 6 weeks at Bonsall Elementary School in Camden. So it's a lot about giving back. You know, I've had a good fortune in my life. You know, I'm a father now. My son's the most important thing, my wife. And I said, you know, it's time to not just, you know, always look out for us and they number one. We have if we don't continue the medium, if we don't continue art, if we don't continue comic books, if we don't continue fantasy art, these are art forms that could die out, and we can't let that happen. Well, the lucky thing is they're part of the social construct of today. What used to be when I was growing up, you know, you had two cons. You had Star Trek conventions and maybe two Comic-Cons in the area that were, you know, very small and very hardcore dealer oriented, and some guest celebrities. Now there's a con everywhere, and every weekend there's 4 or 5 competing, you know. So it's,
what year are you in now?
well, we're bridging into our second year. Our first year was September, this past week in September of 16. It took us, we started talking about it well after 2012, at 2012. And then we kind of said, it's going to take so much and this and that. So then I took the painting workshop in 13. And then I said, wait a minute, this place is perfect. It's in historic Burlington. We could bring youth out. We can bring established artists. It's close enough to New York and Philadelphia. I took Enrico down. We met with Sean. We started talking about it. And then we kind of just started doing stuff about it, but kind of putting it on the side and back and forth. You know, it wasn't. And then around 2015, we really gung-ho went, and Sean's like, well, let's bring it to the township, to the mayor. Let's get the venue for you. And that's how it happened. And literally from 2015 until the show is just mad case of things just flying at us. And thank God for my wife, who's an expert at spreadsheets. Her master plan, I look at it and go, I'm going nuts looking at this. I don't even know how to read it. But, you know, she's a project manager, and she's worked in years doing this. And I'm like, thank God for her. I would have been totally lost. And, you know, you always have hiccups along the way. Even the day of, you know, they're delivering the tables 5 hours late. You know, it's like I'm freaking out on the phone with the, you know, the vendors. I mean, you're going to have problems. And these are the things you kind of go through the hiccups of the first year and say, this is no good. This is no good. We have to do this. This is what we're doing next. Next year, no. You have a lot of ideas and things you want to bring to a show, but then you realize the pragmatic aspect of it. And it's like you build. So this is what's happened with Artisticon. It started out small, and now we've kind of got legs. Our name is out there nationally. So now we got to really live up to it on the second show. And I think we will. I mean, I have some, you know, we've had great guests, don't get me wrong, but we've had some really top names in the art field really interested in coming to the next one, which, you know, could bring a lot of attendance. So we have to take that into account from like an intimate show to a larger show. But I still want to keep that intimate quality, and I think we can achieve that. I still see it happening at IX. They've grown over the 10 years, but there's that magic intimate quality that they have. Patrick and Jeannie put on a class act show. They're the hardest working couple in conventions, I say. And they've been very supportive of us. We're actually sponsoring my friend, and who's actually my attorney, Seth Polanski, who's known in the industry to many creators, to do one-on-one legal reviews at IX. He actually does a talk with John Shindade about law and contract. But in addition to that, Patrick said, let's come up with something different. And instead of like a one-on-one portfolio review, if you have a legal issue, you have 15, 20 minutes to talk to Seth. Do I need an LLC? I'm having this problem with the contract. You can book a spot with him and talk to him. So that's kind of a, thinking outside the box kind of thing. And, the legal side is usually the side most people like to avoid because they're afraid to talk about the business side. And, I, being a businessman as well as a creator, always tell people you've got to learn these aspects. You got to get away from verbal handshakes. You got to get away from spec work. You got to get away from anything that doesn't seem good in your gut. You got to lay it out on the paper, and just in case something happens down the road, you have something to refer to. I'm not going to say you're going to get sued or you're going to sue anybody, but if the case happens, I'm always, I'm partners in also in an IT company that supports creatives, everything we do is on paper. And you have to, because you're dealing with people's data, and you could have data loss and all that. So,
so when is the next one?
Good question. I say later 2018. We're looking most likely early November. And I will say this, that one of the major art schools in Philadelphia is very interested in bringing. We're just going through negotiations now. So it would be ideal. A lot of space. It's in a walking distance from most schools. I think a lot of what happened last year with the young people, although we got quite a few, more people wanted to come, but they're afraid to come over that bridge into Jersey. There's that stigma. And Burlington's it's not off the beaten path. I mean, you could take, the river line in, and like I said, we got a good number of people, but I think some people even who signed up didn't show up. Maybe got scared off at the last minute or something. I think, it was a good start, but we outgrew the venue, and it's obvious that we have to take this to another level. And what this will encompass will be a larger showcase of artists where people can actually buy tables. If they're emerging artists, we will offer a table fee. And then we will also have, probably akin to what IX does, they do a night showcase. And it seems very successful for them, where we would do the lectures, panels, demos, workshops in the afternoon. And this night showcase would be more in the later afternoon into night, and invite a lot of people out.
Now, is it a one-day event? Is that how you guys did it last
No,
year?
we actually had 2 days, and we had the night before, or the day before, the artists came in to set up. I should say artists, I say creators, came in to set up in their tables, and then we briefed them on where they're going to speak and their demos. And then Friday night we had a drink and draw where we had live costumes, Superman and Wonder Woman, a couple from South Jersey that does professional cosplay. He makes the costumes like from the schematics of Man of Steel and Wonder Woman. He's really talented. He's a sheet metal worker, but what he puts together. So we had them at the Brick Wall Tavern in Burlington. We had food and drink for the guests, we opened it to the public. Anybody wanted to come out and draw from the models. So we were there for about 3 hours. It was a great event, a lot of fun. I think it really broke the ice with everybody, between younger and older, and people that hadn't seen each other for years, that were creators in the Marvel bullpen or had worked on other projects together. And it was nice. It was a lot of fun. And then the next day, Saturday and Sunday, it was just constant program after program. We found out, and in hindsight, we had so much programming that the Artist Alley people were like, I don't have time to get there yet. I'm going to the next, because they wanted to head to the next program. Like, the programs were just jam-packed. So then we tried to steer people, okay, you have about a half hour. Come now in and see the artist, get your portfolio review. So we got to figure that spacing out too, where you're not overlapping. And, those are the things you kind of learn in the first show maneuverings. There's going to be these hiccups, and, it's the best you can do. We offered like 23 lectures, workshops, panels, demos, 26 or 27 guest creators. And if somebody's going to say, did you have women? Yes, we had 5 women. And because there was a notion that we were kind of not diverse enough. We were, for our ratio of men to women, and I think it was up there with other shows, but I want so many more women to come out. I want so many more younger people to come out. Don't be afraid. I think our first year out, we were also competing with a lot of shows, and first year shows tend to get, I don't like first year shows. Hit me up next year. And, that's what you have to deal with. Some people are willing to jump on a new show. Some people are not. So I'm hoping, we'll have a really nice lineup of talent from all walks of life, and go from there.
Well, John Cincinnati at your first show is a pretty big get.
Yeah, well, like I said, we already had the show being promoted, and he shared out the podcast on Pencil Kings, and I noticed that. And he says, this sounds like a great new art show. And then 10 minutes later, I get an email like, how do I get in on this? I'm like, Wow. So I said, well, let's talk. I remember I was talking to him. We were at a bounce house birthday party somewhere for somebody's friend. And I'm in the bounce house and it's hard. I had to go outside. I couldn't hear him. So then we started talking. I said, I'm leaving my kid in there to play and I'm talking to you about the con. So it was fun, you know, and we hit it off right away. And, you know, I can't thank him enough. I can't thank him and Mitch Bowler from Pencil Kings. I mean, they just talked it up so much. And when John went to IX after Artisticon, which was a month later, he spoke highly of it in his 4-hour talk. And I came to IX last year to help hang the show. And then I got there Friday and I would introduce myself and people say, what do you do? And I say, my name is Chris. We started a show called Artisticon. They go, oh, Artisticon. I was like, where's this coming from? And it turns out John was, you know, really talking it up and saying how great the programming was. And, you know, that's marketing gold. You know, when you have someone like that talking up your show, that gets around. So, you know.
So when you're not doing the Artisticon, and
I'm sleeping. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So what do you like to do when you're not drawing or helping people break in as creatives?
Well, I have a 6-year-old, so very involved with his life. You know, he's in first grade now, and he plays basketball. He's into karate twice a week. You know, we're a very close family. We were close with my wife's family, so we're very fortunate. We're involved with our church community, doing a lot of philanthropy. I sit on the board of directors for the Greek Heritage Society of Philadelphia. It's a historical society, and that gives me a lot of pleasure because I love history. I love the history of the Greeks, especially coming to the Delaware Valley. And you get so many cool stories of people's lives and their struggles, and it's just amazing to me, like how people even survived in other generations. And like we sit here and complain about everything, and we're so pampered compared to what other people went through. But
our biggest concern is whether we have access to Wi-Fi or not.
Oh yeah, God, yeah, amazing, isn't it? But yeah, I'm a regular guy. You see what you get. My one friend Mark recently called me the mayor. I kind of like the mayor at the Comic Cons, going around, meeting people, talking, introducing here and there. You know, and that's what it's about. You know, I support a lot of independent creators and their Kickstarters. Like I mentioned, Destiny. I just met this guy named Bob Sally from He does a book called Salvagers for Source Point Press. Really nice guy. He's running a Kickstarter. Anthony Spey from South Jersey, who was art director of Zenoscope. He just launched a successful Kickstarter. Fabrice Sapolsky has his book from Intertwine. It's called Intertwine. He launched the Kickstarter, and he did Spider-Man Noir for Marvel. So, you know, some of these guys have had, you know, major work for the big two, and now they're really pushing their own stuff. And that's where that creative entrepreneurship comes in. And, you know, it's for some people, it's not for everybody. Some people like to be the cog in the wheel. You know, we had an inker from Marvel Bullpen for years saying, I just love ink. I just want to sit there and ink pages in my studio all day long. And that's great. Not everybody has to be a superstar or creative entrepreneur. There are ways to work in the field, to be that cog in the wheel, or be that children's book artist, or be that, you know, 3D sculptor using ZBrush to make action figures. There's so many avenues that you can, you know, pursue today. And with social media, the sky's the limit. I mean, in a way, it's more competition, but you have more access. And the field is constantly changing, and you got to keep up with. And you were asking earlier before we went live about social media. We had a course from Mark Lombardi on social media networking and comics, but it just doesn't apply to comics. John Shindahede did his course on creative entrepreneurship, which had a strong aspect of his expertise in Kickstarters and how to use social media to maximize what your goal is, and whatever it is, whether you're writing a novel, whether you're marketing a show, whether you're marketing a comic book, graphic novel, an art book, you're using the same model. And if you follow these steps and you do a great pre-marketing campaign, build your list of contacts, you will have success and great success. It's pretty amazing to see some of these Kickstarters that fund in hours, and then wind up having like 6,000 backers by the end of it. I think it was it's called Stephen Lichtman. I forget, but volume 1, they asked for like $20,000, and when it ended, it was like $385,000 on the Kickstarter. But then you got to also take into account, you got to fulfill the Kickstarter afterwards. So that's a lot of work. So, you know, it's really, I'm sorry.
I said that is definitely part of the trick. So
Yeah.
you know, that's basically like the takeaway. If you're any kind of creative, I feel like you need to be building your following before you even get started.
Yeah, and the thing too is, always remember, be a creator. Don't pander to the genre. Build your ability, and you can work in any genre. Look at Greg Hildebrand. The man's worked in everything, but he's doing mostly fantasy with his brother, who unfortunately passed away years ago. But the man is still relevant with his Marvel covers. And Marvel paintings. It's amazing when you see the ability to bridge into different fields of commercial art. Do not pigeonhole yourself. I say always keep your options open. My friend Enrico, that co-founded Artisticon, sculptor, fantastic sculptor, but does illustration as well. He's going back to sculpting now to do some toy lines. So it's like, if you have the ability and you have the time, that's a key too. Manage your time well. A lot of people don't manage their time well. I'm purposely bad for this. Manage your workspace well. If you know where your things are, it's much easier. I have to do that purge every once in a while because books are here, and I'm kind of like that chaotic. I know where everything is, but doesn't, and I need everything by my hand. So I need to go to my studio and kind of do that cleansing mode. And believe me, that helps your creativity too. So when you're weighed down with clutter, it weighs down your creative aspects, creative juices, so to speak. I just say keep drawing, keep painting, keep writing, do whatever you do, even if you're not doing it commercially, or you take a break. And some people have. I know people take a break 5 years from the field and then come back, or become a writer, or do writing and drawing. And in that review I told you about Michelle Lockamy, she, a lot of people were in the art of visual storytelling class, and he had asked, Carl Potts would say, he's the one that ran the class. He was executive editor of Marvel for years and discovered Jim Lee, Mike Mignola, Art Adams. I mean, we were blessed to have him. He's like, how many people write? How many people draw? Well, kind of everybody rose their hands. And that's the key. It's like, what do you want to do? What do you think you need to do to achieve it? So, visual storytelling is really no different than writing. But how do you work with a writer? How do you work with an editor? We had courses on painting a low chroma portrait by John Wellington. John Wellington was a fine artist, is a fine artist out of the New York Academy of Art. He actually studied under the same methodology my friend Neil, who was a guest, who does large scale paintings for the Catholic Church now. It's called the Riley method of painting and drawing. He was a comic book colorist back at Marvel in the 80s. He did the color run on Mobius's Silver Surfer. He did the color run on Punisher War Journal with Carl Potts using the Dr. Martens colors. And now he's teaching at the New York Academy of Art, fine artists. So you never know where you're going to wind up. And that's what I say. Always keep your options open. You're an artist first. The commercial stuff will come. But stay true to your heart as much as you can. Do what you enjoy and have some fun along the way. It's a tough field.
I'm envisioning superheroes and comic book characters getting snuck into Catholic paintings.
There you go. Well, actually, it's funny. He just did a comic book for the Catholic Church. So he always wanted to be a comic book artist. We were back in undergrad together. He was drawing, back then it was like, you couldn't say it around the teachers. There was like only a few teachers, Martha Earlbach and Renee Fowkes. They were big into drawing and anatomy. They said, draw comics, draw whatever you want. The others were like, that's taboo. It was kind of like, you don't want to talk about that at art school. It wasn't the thing that great artists aspire to, or illustrators, in their eyes. But, you know, we stuck at it. And Neil, you know, he worked for the Franklin Mint for years doing Star Trek concept art for their plates, and then went to New York, studied under Michael Aviano for years, and became this master painter, has an atelier out of Kennett Square, painting large-scale Catholic murals, did the Holy Family portrait for the papal visit 2 years ago to Philadelphia, and now he's known all over the world. So it's like, you know, you don't know where your path's going to take you. So, and it's really just about creating art. It's about creation. You know, you could be a fine artist, you could be a commercial artist. You know, I know fine artists that, you know, work other jobs. I know guys in IT that do comics at night. You know, it's not something to say if you don't do it full time, you're a failure. I don't believe in that. It's your passion, you follow it. I mean, everybody would love to do it full time. I've had, you know, the fortune of being involved in different projects, and I've taken breaks too. So it's like, you know, I say follow your gut, go for it. You only live once. You know?
What's your preferred medium?
Oh, I was trained traditionally as a painter in oils, but I bridged into digital many years ago using Corel Painter. And I like Corel Painter because it's very naturalistic, the tools. There's a lot of painters that use Photoshop with their brushes, and I've tried them, but it still feels a little too mechanical for me. I can like mix the paints on the palette and get really in there with custom brushes that I build. And just the painting engine they have just seems more fluid to me. I mean, I've worked in everything though. I've worked in pen and ink. I've worked in gouache. I've worked in every type of traditional media you can think of. Because when I went to art school, that's all you had. You didn't have digital. I mean, I had a Mac Quadra 800 in the graphic design lab that had Photoshop 1 running with no layers. You know what was that to an illustrator? You know, now it's, you know, it's such a productive tool. It's amazing, but I still prefer the traditional. I love the smell of oil. I love the feel of canvas and the, you know, the mall stick, and it's just like there's nothing like it. Digital I can do, and it's quicker, and you can do changes and all that. And granted, you know, like a lot, some of the older artists say, "Oh, digital is not real art." It is absolutely real art. It's digital art is just another tool. You're using software and a stylus, and once that original artist sells an original painting, you're on the same playing field. You got to sell prints, or you got to sell giclées. So it's still art. It's just another tool. And you know, there's artists out there that will say, "Well, it's not. It's, you know, you're using filters." It depends on how the artist. You take a trained artist and give them a computer with Photoshop or Illustrator or Corel Painter for a year. Trust me, you'll see a difference. You'll see the trained artist using the tool versus an untrained artist. And that's where I come in to say, get the best training you can. I don't care if it's online. I don't care if it's atelier. You know, unfortunately, a lot of kids are coming out of art school with $150,000 debt. You know, I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, I paid off, luckily, my debt in the first year out of college, and I had a lot of, not a lot, but I had a few scholarships that helped out. So a lot of my tuition was paid. But today, it's such a business. It's like, do you go to traditional art school? Do you go online? You know, like Mitch Bowler in Pencil Kings offers online courses. He's starting something called Evolve out of his site, which he videotaped an artist who has the Art Academy out of Northern New Jersey, and they have online sessions that you can buy into for a fraction of the cost. Neil has his atelier, as so do many others, that are just a lot cheaper than going to a traditional art school. And you will learn foundational drawing and painting much more intense than you would at, I think, some of the traditional art schools. Now, the schools like School of Visual Arts since New York City got their act together, Art Center College of Design, where Drew Struzan went. These are big schools that, you know, put a lot of effort into foundational drawing and painting. And I think that's the key. You really need to draw well. I don't care if you're a cartoonist, if you're imaginative realist, whatever they call it today, fantasy art, you need to know how to draw.
So I'm going to let you take a break for a moment and
Sure.
catch your breath. And we're going to jump into our roll call. So, you know, usually halfway through or so, we like to go into the chat and see where people are chiming in from. Also, guys, if you have questions about breaking in as a creative, this would be the guy to ask. So feel free to fire away. I know even my brother, who's an alumni from the same school as you, when people would ask him like what school to go to, he's like, well, really, you can go to, a county college. And it's about the same because when it comes at the end of the day, it's not going to matter which you went to. It's going to be what kind of art you're producing and who. And
also, to me, college is a start. To me, it was a starting point. A lot of the education that I got was in working in the field. I mean, they can't teach that really in the classroom. You kind of got to go trial by fire. And, until you're out there into, when I was sent out into the field, you had your portfolio. You'd either drive up to New York, drop off your portfolio, mail it in, or you go into Center City, Philly, and they had drop-off days. Yeah. And it was one thing after another. You didn't have, or you could fax something sometimes. You didn't have email. You didn't have social media. I mean, you have people doing work now that never even verbally talk. And that, for me, I'm a talker. It's like I had to become a talker. I was a shy guy.
We didn't know it at all.
It's like I talk. And if you go, well, you talk. I said, well, I had to. I said I had to sell myself. And that's it. You're not just selling your art. You're selling yourself, because there's always someone that's better than you. I'm sorry. But some people have egos up, out Mount Everest, but there's someone who's more talented than that person. And it's not about talent. It's not about, just those things that kind of are, it's my name or I lend it. No, it's about hard work. And I don't care how talented you are. Even the most talented artists still have to keep producing the work. So.
All right, so now I'm jumping back into the chat here. So we got Y is in Japan. Okay. We've got Ranger Roy in Missouri. Regilio's in Utah.
Wow.
We're global. Oh, yeah, we were all over the place. We got Lincoln, Nebraska with John. We have Indiana in the house with Adam. Georgia with Brian. Brian's an awesome artist.
My wife grew up in Albany, Georgia.
We have New Orleans in the house with J101. Poison's in Kuwait. Lincoln's in Sweden. We got Zarif Gaming in Rodizio, New Mexico. Avon Park in Florida with Red Jackal. We've got Shallender in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Wow.
We got Evil Silly Putty with Minnesota, Corpus Christi, Texas, Andrew, Oklahoma with Shiva. We've got Ontario, Canada in the house with Mark. Patrick is also in Sweden.
Oh, wow. We got Swedes like me, man. I need some Swedish meatballs. Now I got to go to IKEA, get some Swedish meatballs.
There you go. We got Brazil with Raymond in the house as well.
Oh, Brazil.
So we've got people coming from all over.
That's fantastic.
Always cool.
No, come out to the Delaware Valley, Philadelphia. We'll bring you all in.
Yeah. So it's a lot different breaking in as a creative probably now than when you started. Now there's so many more opportunities.
There are many more opportunities, but also it's a little overwhelming for the young people. It's like, where do I start? How do I create a plan? And I think that's part of why we created Artisticon, is to bring those individuals that are working currently in the field in all these aspects that kind of had to reinvent themselves along the way. The older artists kind of are like me. I mean, I'm 47. I'm old, and I had to reinvent how I did things and how I approached things. If you told me 20 years ago at art school I'd be running an artist convention or conference, I'd laugh at you, be like, me, the shy guy? Nah, it's not going to happen. So you just don't know where things are going to take you. And that my point is that, first off, great portfolio. Even if that portfolio is one or two pieces, and I mean this, you're always judged by your worst piece. Everybody that has worth a weight of salt in the industry will tell you that. They will look at the worst piece first and say, I'm not hiring that guy. I'm not hiring that gal. And it's true. I had a pretty decent portfolio coming out of art school. There's one clunky piece in there. And I started saying, why am I not getting more work? I took the piece out and work started coming. So I think there is something to that. You need to kind of, and the thing today is I notice a lot of young artists, not just young artists, are trying to do too many techniques and styles. Try to create a signature that you can imprint on technique. Technique is basically whether you're using oils, acrylics, digital, that's the medium you're using. Your style is your signature using that medium. So there's a two, when people say, I need a new style. No, your style comes from within you. You are using technique to pull that style outside of you onto what you're creating. And that I got from a professor, and that like opened my eyes one day. It was like, everybody said, oh, I want this style, or I want that style. He's like, your style is what's unique to you. Your unique signature you put on a technique that you employ, whether it's colored pencil, oil, digital, and you should be able to work in all mediums the same, and that's your signature. You can work on a napkin, and it should be a work of art.
So all that aside, what they seem to really care about in the chat is you being 47 and having such good hair.
Oh, well, that's great. Greek genetics. My dad, until 84, full head of white hair.
Just so you know what's important to them.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess my mom looked, she was 74 when she passed. She looked like she was in her 50s. So I don't know. Good Greek genetics. I don't know.
Hey, so do you want to talk about Pizza Tree at all?
Sure. We actually launched an imprint through Artisticon. A bunch of friends of us said, let's get together and let's try a comic book imprint. And the first book we started with was written from my friend Mark and his 6-year-old son Chase. And it's a Goosebumps style, all ages graphic novel called The Pizza Tree. And it's getting wonderful reviews all over social media, Bleeding Cool, First Comic News, podcasts. He was on Secrets of the Sire. It's beautifully illustrated by Ryan Honorato, talented illustrator. He has a kind of like a, I can't know if you can see this here. It's like a screen print style, two-tone. So what he does is he actually pencils, or if someone lays out the pencil, he'll ink over it, but he will pencil and ink, and then he scans in those pencils off a traditional board, and then he digitally colors them in Illustrator. So he's combining traditional and digital techniques, and it's a really cute story. It has it ends really with a positive message. I actually have a pin up in there, a painting I did, and Enrico has a painting, pen and ink drawing. Chase, his son, has a couple paintings, drawings rather. Well, I guess you can call them paintings, from a 6-year-old. And, it's a really cute project. And, it's gotten a lot of legs in a short amount of time. It debuted technically at Harrisburg Comic-Con. Mark was out there by himself, but it then went to Philly Wizard. We were there with him. He sold quite a number. He's been doing the tours and signings. We have a couple other projects in the work. Ryan, we think we'll keep him busy with the all ages stuff. And I have some superhero properties in the works, a story I did with Mark and a couple other things. And it kind of just grew out of, a few of us that were creators together and seeing where we can go with this. Will we ever make money? Who knows? We were lucky enough to get diamond distribution through Arcana. Mark had worked for Arcana. So on the inside, you'll see Pizza Tree, written and illustrated by Chase and Mark Polton. The Artistic Comics logo. I'm listed as president. Whoopee. Rico's vice president, Mark's editor-in-chief, and then it's distributed through Arcana and Diamond Distribution. So that was nice, to get that out there. And it's owned by Mark and Ryan and Chase, and we do creator-owned IPs. We don't take any of the intellectual property ownage, and we're real happy. We're just helping each other get our projects out there. And that's another thing too. Collectives can be very a good thing, for helping creators and young creators. If you like these Kickstarters, you bring in young artists and give them the shot to do a print or a stretch goal. I think that's just, that's nice. That's giving back. That's that mentorship. That's that camaraderie. I think it's very important, mentorship. And that's, I think, a key factor of Artisticon. Everybody needs a mentor. I had 2 fantastic mentors in art school. And if you can find one, great. If you can't, come to these shows and you'll find one. Come to Artisticon. You will see the type of atmosphere we foster. And, you know, a lot of these guests have kept up with young people and guided them. So I think if I can keep that going and that mentality, I think we've achieved our goals.
I see all your reviews over on the Pizza Tree are 5-star.
Yeah, it's written well and it's illustrated beautifully. So yeah, Mark's a great writer, and well, you know, actually Chase wrote it with his dad. You know, Chase is the real writer, and dad helped. You know, he's the cool kid because he went in, read it to the class. You know, he actually signed at San Diego Comic-Con at the Arcana table. So, you know, we got an author, award-winning author, now 7. So, and he's friends with my son, Dean. So it's fun to see that, you know. And we wish him all the best. I mean, I think, you know, the all ages thing is where Mark's heading. He's had a cat named Haiku with great success through Arcana. He actually wrote for Savage Hawkman under Liefeld back in the New 52. He's worked for Image. He worked on Evangeline. He's had an illustrative career in comics. So, you know, that he's kind of going towards the children's aspect now, because, and he says this is the most fulfilling he's had in his career. And I can see why, because he did it with his son. You know, there's love there. So
one of the guys that kind of weighed in the chat, Brian Collin from Creature Curations, he does sculpts. They're all sculpts, like wall mounts, like big.
Awesome. I love those things.
And it came from him making monsters with his son.
Right.
He would turn around and turn them into these sculpts. Like Gen Con, I guess it was, I picked one up, and it's, you know, like 18, 24 inches, you know, and they're gorgeous. And we had him on, he was talking where he starts with like I guess you can buy like styrofoam deer heads and stuff.
Right.
Taxidermists use, and like he builds on top of those.
Right.
It's all like really fantastic stuff, but it's the same idea that like he's doing these projects with his son. So it's so cool to see.
Right. Well, I did want to mention that we're sponsoring Seth at IX, but we also have an event the week after on Thursday, October 26th. This is open to students, educators, and anybody that attended Artisticon. We've graciously been included through the introduction of Matt Davis from Digital Print House, who's another great guy who has a similar mission statement. He's changing how things are doing with print on demand and printing in the industry. And he might be someone you want to talk to, Doug, because he's helping a lot of artists with cost and a lot going back to the artist in terms of profit. But he and I are sharing a table at the Radisson in Trevose, Pennsylvania, Thursday, October 26th. That day, there will be 20 classes offered between what the Graphic Arts Association is offering. If you go to graphicallyspeaking.org, I've also shared out the flyer, so to speak, of what the day is. 2 of the courses are being taught by Seth Polanski, who is a creative IP and trademark attorney. The price of admission alone for those 2 classes, I highly suggest. There's limited number of spaces, but if you're a student, we've got a grant from Xerox. Normally it's like $170, $180 to get in there. 5 classes plus a buffet lunch for $15 for students, $30 for educators, and $35 for Artisticon attendees that were adults. If you're a student attendee of Artisticon, still $15. I highly recommend you try to get out to the Radisson in Trevose on Thursday, October 26th. Bring your portfolio. They will have courses on design for illustrators, how to work with printers. It's going to be a great day, and you can't beat that price. We also are sponsoring in April 14th at Camden Comic-Con, Dorian Vallejo. We'll be doing a live painting lecture and demo all day long, and that's free to the public to come out and see Dorian paint live. You do not want to miss that. He's one of the top artists out there. He is Boris Vallejo, the famous fantasy artist's son, and he is a talent in his own right. Beautiful artwork, and recently, past couple years, have become a good friend. And that's the other thing. I've become friends with so many great artists and people I never would have thought of, you know, with this creation of Artisticon. And, it's just, it's something we keep pushing. And, the thing I would suggest is, if you are not going through Atelier, try Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Look into drawing and painting, their courses, Moore College of Art, University of the Arts, see what they have to offer. Renee Fowkes, who was a guest of ours, did technical narrative lecture. It was fantastic at Artisticon. We can't stress enough to get out to these events. Even if you have a little social anxiety, try to get past it. We're not going to bite you. We're only out there to help you. And, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of camaraderie. You won't be disappointed. I think that's pretty much the gist of what Artisticon is.
Nice. It is cool, and it is great, because that is one of the you're helping in an area where so many people are, struggle. Like, how do I break in? How do I get started? What do I do? We've had a lot of different artists on this show. Even in the short amount of time we've been doing these live chats, and and a lot of times that's what they get asked. What do I do? How do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice that you guys are have put together this platform where you guys are having classes to kind of walk people through those questions.
Right. And there are other classes. There's Illustrators Workshop, IMC. There's One Fantastic Week. There's other boot camps, and I encourage people to go to these, seek them out. Come to IX, go to Spectrum, go to the other shows, go to Gen Con and take the programming, or Origins, or any of these bigger shows. Go to the programming. I mean, you will get tidbits of information you never thought. I think a lot of people go for fans, but they kind of, the ones that kind of go to the lectures I've seen are kind of the same people. Kind of take a detour and try something different. You really get a lot out of it. We're big into promoting literacy and education. Shout out to Phillipsburg High School and the Comic-Con out there. They bring in top artists from the Kubert School. Faith puts on a great show. I haven't been yet. I'm going this year. And she really has grown that. Camden Comic-Con, Bill and Miranda have grown it from a couple hundred people to 3,500, 4,000. And these are shows that are giving back to the community. If you can be philanthropic, please do. We're doing an art school fundraiser supply for the city of Camden through the Rutgers Foundation to raise in the month of October in honor of Jake Parker in October, in honor of him. I've kind of gotten to know him a little. That we saw there's a lot of lacking of ability for these kids to even create art. So we're creating a drive to donate money through a GoFundMe, or mail in art supplies, or drop them off at the college, and we'll collect and distribute them into the community for the month of October into November. And, we're starting to do like art competitions and things like that. And, like I said, I'm constantly pushing the independent stuff. Like one of my kids' favorite from Dan Doherty, Sam and the Jungle Band, his book called No. I go to cons. I'm not buying the big two stuff. I just met Ramona Fraden, one of the, I would say, probably the oldest living comic book artist. She's 90. She paved the way for female comic artists. She worked on Aquaman. She worked on Super Friends. She worked on Brenda Starr. She created Metamorpho for DC. And this is her children's book she did for the New York Academy of Natural Sciences. She was 90 years old, sitting across from us for 3 days. I'm sitting there complaining about my back, and I look at her, and she's just, happy to be there. So, what am I complaining for? Jamar Nicholas's new book, Leon, Protector of the Playground, gives a great message for kids out there. He also did the cover of the Baltimore Comic-Con program. Shout out for Christian Patch for Brothers Grimm, Destiny, Salvagers, you name it, I got it here. Sire, Dudley, Tales of Mr. Reed by Dirk Manning, one of my good friends. Dirk.
You definitely...
I'm a supporter of the Indian
thing about your space, because everything is like within arm's reach.
Yeah. Well, I pulled a collection out, so so a little smattering, and then give a nice shout out because it's a beautiful book. It's called The Journal from the Art Order, and this is a labor of love from John Chindahede, and he's working hard on his next one, and he has the. I urge anybody that likes dragons, or if you even don't like drawing, he has through the month of October submissions on the Art Order site of his company to submit for tiny dragon drawings, and they're fantastic. He's getting so many that are so wonderful, and they're going to create a book about them. So I always say, enter the contest, do Inktober, draw every day, get involved with anything art related, and it's going to change not only your ability but your mindset. And you'll say, I think for me, I look at other creators and I get inspired. I want to draw more. I want to paint more. I think some people get a little intimidated. Well, that comes with age. When you get a little older and wiser, you're like, wow, I just got to soak this in. Like Thursday night, I'm going to the Society of Illustrators to see Greg Manches's opening. I'm not missing that. I love the man's work. I have the ability to get there in an hour and a half on the train. I'm going. It's like I said, you live only once. Do it. Take the chance. Take the leap, and join us at the next Artisticon. More will be on the website, the determined date, and all the lectures and panels and workshops offering guests. And we think this is going to be a really breakout year. Well, I should say 2018, and hopefully we'll get people coming from all over, all walks of life.
Excellent. Well, with that, we're right up against the hour mark. I appreciate you coming on, Chris, and
thank you for having me.
I think I could have went to lunch while you were on here and came back, and we'd have been good to go. Which is good. I love having people on that want to talk about what they're passionate about, and I don't have to yank it out of them.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing. There's people in the chat going, they're going to have to re-listen to this. They're trying to take notes. And
absolutely. And they, if they go to the Artisticon website and they have any questions, it's info@artisticon.net. There's a submission form. Send your questions. If you want to, anything. I'd like to get in touch with this artist that maybe was a guest. Hey, I'll introduce you. I'll introduce you to anybody. That's I got the gift of introduction, someone told me, because you could just get people together. My friend calls me the unifier. I was like, okay, I'll take it. So,
and all that information in the description. So you guys, the links are there.
Okay. Yeah, I like getting people together, like-minded people that want to do good work. And I think, when I see young people get down on themselves, I try to bolster them and say, look, nothing lasts forever. The only constant is change, and there's always change for the better. And if you work hard, you're going to get where you want to be.
Absolutely. So we're actually have to grab a beer sometime or something.
I'm all for it, man.
30 minutes of me.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see your dungeon there. I see that armor thing.
My grandfather actually lives right in Pennsauken, right down the street.
Oh, okay. Now, are you a big D&D gamer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we might say that we kind of have a channel about it. So
okay, yeah. Well, I just wasn't sure if you have time to play it anymore.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's mainly what we cover here on Nerdarchy. I know you found us because of John.
Right.
And when you reached out to me, I just thought it was cool because you're a local guy doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, sure, let's come on, have you on, talk about the stuff you're doing. It's great because
I hope to have a section for gaming in the new Artisticon. So like when John's out there, it'd be kind of interesting to bring someone who's doing a talk about it, if you want to be like part of the panel or something. Would you be interested?
We'd definitely be interested in it. I mean,
yeah, cool.
Like I said, it's kind of what we eat, breathe, and sleep over here at Nerdarchy.
What else are you into? Magic and
that's all I have time for. Tabletop gaming. Tabletop gaming is pretty much like you. I also have a family, so
sure.
We do some other tabletop games as well. I want to say for me, it's a lot easier because this year I left my day job as a construction worker to do this.
Great.
But for the other guys, they have day jobs in addition to doing Nerdarchy. So
Gotcha.
You know, it's you know, it's basically a full-time gig all by itself. We
Well, this is going to interest. Well, you might be like, really? I'm starting a podcast, and I'm thinking of maybe doing it this way. But I have a friend who's a Greek Orthodox priest who was huge into comics. So he started a blog about comics and religion. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because he takes mythology and how it relates. And it's really not like, it's not Bible bang. It's just like interesting history and how these characters relate to this, these characters. And we're going to try to turn it into a podcast. So should be interesting.
Awesome. Let me know when you do. You have an open invitation to come back anytime.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would love to maybe before the show starts next time or promote it a little bit or, you know, that'd be
Cool.
great.
So with that, guys, until next time, stay nerdy.
Okay. Thank you.